Hello, listeners. Welcome to Marie Lives the Horror. This is episode 16 of the series of True Paranormal Ghost Stories. In tonight's episode, you will hear true tales of dangerous, ghostly visitors, a terrifying hitchhiking ghost, and even a haunted piece of furniture with demonic intentions. So without further ado, step into my horror chamber as we live the horror together. Number 1. The figure with glowing eyes. I am an avid fan of this community and have several stories that I would like to share. I am from the Middle East, and many people where I'm from believe in the supernatural, including myself. I will start with one story that my aunt, a very pious woman, told me about her experience at night. We rarely use electric dryers in my country, so after washing clothes, we hang them on the clotheslines to dry. My aunt was doing the laundry at night, and she took the clothes out to the balcony to hang. The line is on the outside of the balcony, so while she's hanging the clothes, she can look down onto the street. She looks down, and she notices a figure standing under a tree. She's on the second floor, so it's easy to see every detail on the street. He/it was tall, very, very tall, and was completely black. From top to bottom, you couldn't see any detail except his eyes. They were huge, and she said they were completely white and glowing. He was looking up at the first floor. My aunt screamed and ran into the house, telling her husband and my cousins what she saw. The men ran outside to see who it was, but there was nobody there. They were like, "Maybe you were seeing things." The next day, the first floor neighbor died. My aunt went to a sheikh and told him what happened. And he said it could have been the angel of death waiting to take his soul, or a jinn. As outrageous as this may sound, I believe her. She is a 50-year-old woman who is of sound mind. She prays, fasts, and doesn't drink or take drugs. In that house, she has had many experiences. They used to see people from the corner of their eyes wearing white, moving from room to room. Other times, it would mimic their voice, calling out to them in the voice of my aunt. When they would respond, my aunt would tell them she never called them. I have my own experiences, and if you're interested, I'd love to share them with you all. Number 2. 16 years in a haunted house. Hey guys, this will be my first post. I tried posting this before, but for whatever reason it didn't work. Anyways, I'm just going to briefly talk about the house I grew up in, and then point for the experiences, because it'll be too long of a story. When I was 2, my family moved into a small home. It's in Toronto, in the Upper Beaches area. I'm not sure how old it was, but It didn't have an ancient vibe inside. Anyways, for as long as I can remember, I've had a fascination with the paranormal, particularly ghosts, and just recently, I thought maybe I was the one who brought on the energy or spirits since I opened myself to it as a kid. Who knows? Anyways, it was a small 3-bedroom home. One bedroom was tiny and used to be a bathroom, but was converted into a bedroom for my younger brother when he came around. My room faced the street, and my parents' room was at the back of the house. All bedrooms were on the second floor. There was a small living room at the front of the house and a small kitchen at the back. The basement was unfinished, but had a cold room at the back of the laundry room, which we never used. The ground was literally dirt. And the bathroom was at the far end of the basement. I will form things that happened in the house for the entirety of the time I lived there. Most likely I will miss things, since there are so many to remember. Probably when I was around 7, me and my friend were playing in my room, and a piece of chalk from the chalkboard set came flying down from a shelf and hit my friend in the back of the head. My response was to laugh and tell her, maybe the ghosts in my house don't like you. This next one literally changed the way I slept forever. I was in bed facing my wall. One side of my bed was pushed against my wall, so my back was exposed. And I felt someone tuck the blanket under me, starting at my legs, paused at my lower back, and continued up to my neck. I didn't hear anyone come in or leave my room. I slowly turned, and no one was there. Obviously, so I thought I might have imagined it somehow. So I went to check if the blanket was actually tucked under me, and of course it was. To this day, I can't sleep with my back facing a room because of that. I was in bed with my eyes closed, not asleep, and I heard someone whisper, "Tina," on my ear, and my eyes shot open. No one was there. This happened another time, except someone screamed in my ear. Me, my mom, and my aunt all saw the same female figure with dark hair and a long white nightdress. My mom was sitting in the kitchen having her regular tea and smoke, and the basement entrance was connected to the kitchen. She saw her come out of the basement entrance, walk to the base of the main floor stairs, and run up the stairs. I saw her when I was walking to the main floor one night. I decided to sleep on the couch since my room was so hot, and when I turned around, she was there on the staircase in front of me. Lastly, my aunt saw her when she was giving my cousin a bath in the basement. She heard someone knock on the door. She reached behind herself to open the door. She didn't hear anyone speak. So she turned her head and saw bare feet and the bottom of a nightdress, and when she fully turned, it was as if she was just gone. So she grabbed my cousin and booked out of there. My friend was dropping off cigarettes for my mom, and the second door of the house opened for him and shut behind him when he was leaving. We had 2 front doors, since we had a small area in front of the house to sit and put our shoes. My mom used to put bread in a glass blue bowl that sat on top of a water cooler in the kitchen. One day she put a loaf of bread in there. She witnessed the bag of bread levitate out of the bowl and be thrown to the other side of this kitchen. Unfazed, she grabbed it, placed it back in the bowl, and it happened a second time. I used to hear footsteps literally every single night. They would run quickly up the main floor stairs and then walk slowly into my room and stop beside my bed. It would be silent for maybe 5 minutes, which is a long time when you're scared. And then they would walk out of my room and run back down the stairs. This happened religiously for as long as I can remember every single night. I never saw what it was. My family's friends were over, and we were all hanging out in the kitchen when we heard a smash from the living room, and my parents' wedding photo was cracked all the way across. It looked as if someone had shot it or punched it. There was no obvious cause for this, so it was pretty creepy. My brother used to play with a quote-unquote girl in our house when he was very young, and he told my mom one day that he didn't want to play with her anymore because she scared him. My mom was taking a bath with just candlelight. Each candle had blown out while she was bathing. The candles were placed on the counter, and there was no direct air facing them. She obviously ended her bath abruptly. I was using the washroom, and someone knocked on the door, so I answered, "Yeah?" and nothing. Again, I answered, "Yeah?" and nothing. There was no one on the other side. I had a small doll on a bench, and you had to wind it up for it to work. If you wound it up, it would kind of move its body in a circle from the waist up and play a song. I hadn't wound it up for years, and it just sat collected dust on my shelf. One night, when I was in bed, it randomly started playing the song as the doll eerily moved around. I got rid of it the next day. I saw a woman in a black dress standing in our backyard. It was brief, and I told my mom. Her reply was, "Maybe you're gonna start seeing that lady I used to see when you were little," which obviously creeped me out. Apparently, my mom used to see this lady in the background of wherever I was as a kid if I was playing, as if she was watching over me from afar. My dad saw someone standing in the bedroom corner. I don't know much else about this, as I simply heard it from a family member. My dad didn't want to tell me. I saw a blonde girl sitting on the couch facing the window. I could only see her body and the back of her head. I said, "Hi, Jess," because I thought it was my cousin, and she rudely didn't reply, so I stormed off upstairs. When I came back down, I asked where Jess was, and my mom said no one else had come over. It was only me and her and my brother in the house the whole time. I always had an uneasy feeling in the basement, even though I never saw anything down there. I would often leave the washroom covering my ears and running as fast as I could, because I always felt like someone was close to me and I would hear something. I also felt uneasy in my parents' room, and I never saw anything there either. It just felt full, as if the room was crowded with people or energy. It's hard to explain. I was there long enough, I would always end up screaming for my mom, so she would come to the door and I'd run to her once she got there. One of the creepiest things I still remember, I didn't see or feel anything, but it was what my mom said that I remembered. It was late and my brother was asleep, but I always had problems falling asleep, so I laid awake in bed. I heard my mom tell my dad, "Joe, there's someone in the house." I don't know why, but her saying that always creeped me out. There was like an eeriness in her tone. No one was in the house though. She saw someone walk on the main floor, but when my dad went to check, no one was there. Okay, so I can't recall other things right at this moment. I'll make a part 2 if they come to me. But the other things that would happen were basic ghostly things, like lights flickering on and off, and radios being turned on full volume, and TVs turning on and off, footsteps. The weird thing was, I was never terrified as a kid. I never automatically thought it's a ghost, and would often shrug it off quickly. I think it's because it was normal, since I grew up there and didn't know any different. It was after we moved that we started really telling these stories to family members or close friends, because nothing happened in our second home. Anyways, if anyone's experienced the same, let me know. Oh, apparently a woman and her kid were murdered in the basement, but I couldn't find anything to back this. It was just told to my mom by a friend when they were walking on the street. When they got to the house, my mom stopped and her friend said, "You live here?" And she replied, "Yes." And then her friend told her what happened. Anyways, that was my first post. Thanks for listening. Number 3. The Man in the Road. Good evening, all. I got something to share. I currently live in Manchester area, UK, and I stay up relatively late, 3 to 4 a.m. I always close my curtains and windows quite early, 7 to 8ish. However, on this particular night, it was warm and I wanted to get some air through the house, so I left them open longer. I ended up watching some Netflix and YouTube, and it got late, so I headed to bed. I walked into my room and realized the curtains were open and the window was still open. This is 2 to 3 a.m. I proceeded to close the window and the curtains. However, I stopped and stared out for a little, not sure why. I've never seen the streets so quiet, so mystical. It was bewildering. I stood there for a few minutes until I saw a single person walking down the street, not sure from where or how they got there. They looked like a small, pale old man who was wearing a small top hat, like a bowl hat, a full suit like from the series of Peaky Blinders. This is the best that I can describe it. He started crossing the road and stopped. I was still looking at this point. What was an old man doing out at 3 a.m. in the morning. He slowly turned directly into my window and watched. As I was shocked, I quickly ducked out of sight. I was there for a little while. Then I peeked up. He was still standing in the middle of the road. A few seconds later, that felt like an eternity, I get the confidence to peek back up, and he is still watching. Giving up, I realized he had already seen me. So I crawl out of sight and walk normally to the window, just to hopefully make him think I wasn't watching him. It's very nerving at that time of night. However, this time, he was gone. It's a main road. It would have took him a lot longer to walk over, and then I can still see down the whole road. He was absolutely nowhere. The shops were closed on both sides. Then the worst experience in my life happened. I hear a knock on the door. 3 very distinct knocks that will never leave my mind. Thud, thud, thud. I did not answer. Then another louder knock. Thud, thud, thud. I did not answer. Who would it be at that time? Again, louder. Bang, bang, bang. I did not answer. And then silence. I peeked down my stairs to the front door. My house has a sensor at the front door. When someone arrives, the porch light turns on. It was pitch black. I slowly tried to look through the window panel in the door. Nothing. No one was there. A cold breeze was slowly crawling up the stairs. I returned to my room and lay on my bed for hours. I finally did manage to drift off. No idea how long I was asleep before something I have never experienced before happens. I feel a breath in my ear and hear a whisper. Enjoy your stay. I can't explain it. The only thing I can think of is sleep paralysis caused me to hear a voice due to the events of that night. I am still in the same house, and nothing else has happened since, and I am thankful for that. Number 4. The Hitchhiker Ghost. I've had several strange and scary ghost experiences, but this was the worst one by far. I'm only grateful it was with a group of people, so I know I'm not insane. My 3 friends and I were driving back home from my parents late at night. We'll call them Anna, Gianni, and Ian. It was an 8-hour drive, and halfway into it, Gianna and Ian were asleep in the back seat. I was driving and Anna was shotgun talking to me. We both saw this strange circle of light, an orb, come into the back seat. It was like a beach ball had floated through the window and disappeared. I asked her if she saw it and she said yes. Then we kinda laughed it off and agreed to say it was headlights, when it obviously wasn't. We got back into the conversation and I turned to look at her, only to see a curtain of stringy black hair between us. There was a woman hunched over my console, her hair hanging and covering every other detail of her. I screamed and swerved off into the interstate, waking up everyone in the back seat. She was gone when I looked back at Anna. I hysterically tried to explain to Ian and Gianni that we had almost just died because the girl from the ring decided to make an appearance. But they didn't believe me until Anna confirmed she saw her too. We started saying Hail Marys and Our Fathers, whatever I could remember from church. My Siri then picked up from the stand on the dashboard, and with an American female voice, my Siri is set to Australian male. Siri said, "I don't understand what you just said," then proceeded to write out the prayers we'd been saying on the screen. We were freaked out. We got off at the next exit and called my mom to pray over the car. She didn't believe me either until Anna confirmed the story. We felt pretty confident after that we would be fine, and got back on the road. Ian and Gianni went back to sleep. A hand came around my left side and slowly wrapped his fingers around my arm and squeezed. I screamed and turned to cuss at Ian, but he was half asleep and confused. He couldn't have fit his arm around my seat anyways. It did the same thing to Anna, but she didn't tell me until later. She didn't want to scare me any more than I already was. I was leaned over, hugging Anna driving. I could barely reach the steering wheel, but we didn't want it to grab us again. Then Ian wakes up out of a dead sleep, screaming his head off. He immediately grabbed his foot and tore off his shoe and sock to reveal human bite marks. We pulled off at another exit, and we 3 girls threw open the doors and jumped out of the car. Then we got into it because Gianni accuses Anna and I of making this all up to scare her. So we looked pretty crazy all outside our car, screaming at each other at a random gas station. We realized Ian hadn't even gotten out of the car, and I opened his door and asked if he was okay. He said, "Yeah, I'm fine. Let's get back on the road." We just stared at him, dumbfounded. I said, "You just got bitten by a ghost, and you're fine?" He insisted he felt great, and he wanted to get back on the road. We switched the seating arrangements up, and I sat in Ian's spot behind the driver, while he sat shotgun and Anna drove. I kept my feet off the floorboard for the rest of the trip, and kept my eyes on Ian, who stayed awake the rest of the ride. No one spoke of it until the next day. We dropped everyone off and then went home, and I slept in my roommate's bed with her. When we asked Ian about it, he said he had never told us he was fine, or that he wanted to get back on the road. Number 5. It came with the couch. Hello all. I'm a long-time lurker, but I think it is time to share my first and only paranormal experience. It is a long story, so I think I will try to cut it down to the main event. And if people are interested, I can add additional info/experiences/outcomes. So here's some background. This is my first official encounter with the paranormal. I have always been on the sensitive side, but more regarding energies and emotions, mostly of people, but sometimes places. I don't see auras or colors. It is more just feeling the positive and negative energies. There have been times where places just throw me off or make me feel deeply uncomfortable. However, I had never interacted with the paranormal, although I was always interested. As such, I never truly believed until this experience. Around a year and a half ago, I moved into my first apartment, about 2 years ago, along with 2 other roommates. I am a college student, and my apartment reflected that. As all of us were moving from furnished spaces, we did not have a lot of furniture, a couch being one of them. However, there was no immediate need to purchase one, so it becomes something on the lookout, but not of urgency. 5 months pass, and I learn that my roommate's friend is moving and would give us a free couch. This was great. It was free, and it was also from someone we know. However, what I came to learn about this person is they had just escaped from an abusive relationship. I am not sure if it ever got physical. It was not my place to ask. But they did mention their partner was in possession of a handgun, which went off in the apartment. There was a bullet hole in the wall to prove it. Looking back, I should have never taken anything from their apartment. It was a small, cramped studio and was weird, to say the least. But the price tag of free was too good to resist. We get the couch into the apartment with no issues. School starts soon after, and all seems good. About a week or two into owning the couch, I was making dinner in the kitchen, which is open living room, and I noticed a white, feather-like mist out of the corner of my eye. It was as clear as day and quickly whipped downward in about a second. I was excited, as it was the first time I saw something unexplained. I did not feel anything negative, just curiosity. As the weeks went on, I would continue to see these lights and mists of varying colors and density, not only in my apartment, but on campus, library, classes, etc. During this time, I was dealing with some personal issues. I will preface this with I am bipolar, have depression, and general and social anxiety. I have been on meds about 3 to 4 years at this point, and was stable. I was feeling unfulfilled with my major and my Chinese language classes. I had been learning Chinese for 7 years at that point, and had decided my major junior year of high school, and had loved all of my major's classes. However, even though it was only a few weeks into the semester, I was feeling very overwhelmed and unmotivated, which is very unlike me. I am that bitch who looks forward to returning to school. I started the semester by missing a number of assignments and classes. There were a few times where, out of the blue, I would have very vivid images of myself committing suicide, like I could feel the blood on my wrist or the pills in my hand. I had dealt with suicide ideation in the past, however, not to this detail. I cannot stress the realist nature of these images. Things only seem to wrap up from there. About a month after having the couch, I had the most disturbing experience in my life. It was 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and I was sitting on the couch. My roommates were out of town for the weekend, so I was calling my parents from my laptop without earbuds. With Apple products, you are able to call people from your computer, and it is shown with a bar at the top corner of the computer. The noise level of the other person's voice is shown with the fluctuating bars that move higher with lower sound and grow shorter for quieter. just like you see with memo recording. We were talking about a paper or something, and suddenly my parents' voices cut out, and I hear a rumbling sound, similar to a phone on a moving car's dashboard. At first, this was not startling, just weird. They were driving through the mountains, and there are places where service is spotty, but you get broken sound, not white noise. However, a couple of seconds later, the rumbling grew into a growl. It was guttural and loud. It made the noise indicator bar hit the highest sound level for a solid 5 seconds. I suddenly had an overwhelming feeling of dread. Then I hear my dad's voice calling my nickname as clear as day. However, I knew in my core that this was not my father. It was devoid of any warmth and was mocking in nature. I was terrified, almost yelling, "Mom, Dad," over and over to see if I could get through to them, with no response besides "Jin, Jin." This continues for 10 seconds tops, but felt like forever. Just as I hear my parents' voices come back through the call, I see a black mist dissipate in the far corner of the living room. By the time my parents came back, I am panicked. I am crying and asking if they heard any of it. They replied that there was only silence on my end, which was a god-awful answer to hear. They, of course, are terrified for me. They were concerned I was having a breakdown, which is a valid assessment. They suggested that I get up and try to find one of my cats and just pet them and calm down. It is only then I realize that I cannot move from the couch. This is not a physical resistance. I was not stuck to the couch or forced by some force to stay down, but I had a feeling that I would be injured if I moved from there. It was almost this threat of violence from something. At this point, I am close to having a full-blown panic attack. My parents, states away, are helpless and suggest I call my close friend to see if she could come over. My friend agrees and arrived 30 minutes later. For that half an hour, I remained glued to the couch on the phone with my parents. My friend knocks on the door, and I force myself to get up and unlock the door, with my parents on the phone in tow. I let her in and tried to explain what happened, but I have the worst panic attack in my life. I have had a number of panic attacks. It comes with the territory, but this one was unlike any other. Just like the couch, I could not move. I sunk to the floor of the hallway and broke down. My friend, who I was not super close with at the time, was truly an MVP. She helped me calm down and talk to my parents. She decided that we needed to get out of the apartment, and with her help, I was able to leave the apartment and head to a nearby park. She asked if I would feel comfortable if her father, a religiously important man in his community, could say a prayer over me. I am not religious in any sense, but was looking for any help at all consented. She called her father and explained what was happening. In the middle of their conversation, I felt immediate relief and the sensation of a release of pressure from myself. It was so strong that my knees gave out and I nearly collapsed. I asked if he had just said the prayer, and she said yes. This could be labeled as a placebo or just me hearing the pray and responding, but my friend speaks strictly Arabic with her father. I could not understand a single word between them for the entire conversation. Feeling better, I decided I need to return to the apartment and make sure my cats were okay. I was so resistant to leave them, but my friend convinced me that they would be okay. When I returned, I immediately grabbed my cats and headed to my bedroom, shutting the door behind me. I did not leave until well into the next morning when my roommates had returned. I removed the couch later that week, but felt whatever it was still attached to me. I made an appointment with a cleanser, who I would meet with a month later, which is a whole other story. I continued to see mist, deal with the overwhelming darkness and pain, mental and physical, and possibly have caught an orb on camera in my living room. However, after the meeting with the cleanser, my life and my apartment became normal again. I felt immediate relief from the physical pain and mental fog. I am still in the same apartment and have never seen or sensed anything since. I am convinced that something evil was attached to that couch and it targeted me specifically. But joke's on it, 'cause I am stronger than it thought. Thanks for sitting through this long ass story. Like I said, I cut some stuff in the session because it was already so long and I know that can be daunting. Let me know if you have any questions or want to hear about the cleansing session or see the video. I might wait until I move out in a couple of weeks to upload it though. To quote Michael Scott, I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. Hello, listeners. Thank you for listening to this episode of True Paranormal Ghost Stories as you live the horror with me. If you would like to submit some of your own true paranormal experiences for me to narrate on this channel, check the description down below and send them over to my email. Do not forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell to keep up with future episodes. Thanks for listening. I am your host, Marie Lives the Horror.